that end, you have the low-functioning classroom. And a low-functioning classroom is more like traditional education. And I'll pick out some of the things here. First of all, the role of the teacher. The role of the teacher in a high-functioning classroom is to challenge the pupils. In a low-functioning classroom, the role of the teacher is just to lead the pupils to the answer. That's the only thing. And the researchers said, in the what we call guided teaching, there is a problem, which has two aspects. One of which is low-ability pupils never learn to find their way to the answer because they just remain dependent on the teacher to tell them. But they said more important, high-ability pupils work out the method. And the method is, I'm the teacher, I have 45 minutes, we'll do a bit of this and that for a while, and then about minute 38, I'll tell you the answer, and then you write it down, and at minute 42, I'll give you a test, and you write down again what you just wrote down, and then that's the end of the lesson, and I think you've learned the lesson. They said, what the bright, the intelligence pupils do is that they realise what you're doing, and they realise they don't have to pay attention for the first 37 minutes because you're going to tell them in the end, so it's not worth bothering. And one of the researchers followed a 14-year-old girl around her secondary school for a whole week, writing down what she was doing in all that time. And in the researcher's view, she did 11 minutes of learning in 5 days. In England, we spend £1 billion a week on education, primary and secondary education. For 11 minutes of learning, that's not a very good return. But it's done in such a way that the teacher is busy helping the people who can't cope, explaining something and so forth, and the pupils are just not there. The nature of the activities, it has to feel real to pupils to come alive. So much of the time you talk to teachers and teachers say, oh, it's really difficult. People say to me, why am I learning this? What's the point of this? I don't understand where this fits. And it has to feel real and connected with their real lives. The organisation of time has to be flexible. You have to think about using time flexibly. It's easier to do in primary school because there's usually a class teacher and we'll do 3 hours on this and 10 minutes on that. In a secondary school, it's more complicated. But actually, you can use time much more flexibly. You should use the time for how long it takes to learn, not agree that learning takes 45 minutes, and really relate those two. The organisation of space. Pupils should focus on tasks, not the teacher. So this isn't a very high-functioning environment because I'm talking and you're all sitting down, but generally speaking, you try and get people to focus on the task. The approach to tasks in a high-functioning classroom is very social. You talk to each other. There is a relationship between the teacher and the pupils, a relationship between the pupils, and learning is deeply social. The visibility of processes. This was a really interesting one to me. What the researchers say is in a low-functioning environment, learning is often very invisible. And that's a bit like now. Some of you are taking notes. None of us are going to read your notes. We don't know what you really understood from here, and that kind of thing. And they said low visibility is low risk. So you can sit here quietly for 2 hours and listen to me, and whether you've learnt or not, nobody knows, and therefore it's not very motivating. If you do projects which are very visible, so you're working with a grade 5 maths class, and they are using maths to build a big structure in the middle of the playground, that's highly visible. And highly visible is high risk, because if it's terrible, everybody's going to know. Everyone in the class, everyone in the school, and so forth. And high risk is motivating. This was the key thing they said. A lot of school has been made too safe for young people. And because it's so safe, they know they don't have to bother. If you take some of that safety away and make it much higher risk, they are much more motivated. The location of the activities. We talk about learning being very mobile and very physical. And so you're wandering around the classroom, you go out and you use the school grounds, maybe you even go into town and do things and so on. But you're using your bodies. The self as a learning resource. is again a really important point. You can teach in a room with nobody else in it, because I could do this lecture if you weren't here. But learning is a negotiation, and then you have to make a difference. A lot of pupils feel, actually it makes no difference if I turn up to class, because it's going to be the same class whether I'm there, whether I'm not there. And that's very alienating. And you think, well, there's no point in being here. If you use the pupil, their questions, their observations, their histories, what they tell you about their families, and you weave that into the learning, then they feel they made a difference to the class. And that's motivating. You're really engaged at that particular point. And then there's the whole question about emotion. Schools like to feel that school is an emotion-free zone. Right? We're just rational. This is what we do. Actually, if you burst into tears or do something like that, you say that's not appropriate behaviour. But the truth is, emotion is around us all the time. And if you don't recognise emotion, you are losing a huge amount of the real dynamic of what's happening in the classroom. I was talking to some pupils, they were year 6s, year 7s the other day, and they were with their teachers and the school director. And I said, is it important that teachers do creative things in school? And the pupils said, it's really important that teachers are creative. And I said, why? And this one boy said, I'll tell you why. When my teacher is teaching her normal thing, she has her grumpy face on. And when she has her grumpy face on, if I don't understand, then I don't like to ask. But when she's doing her creative stuff, then she's got her happy face on. And then I ask my questions and she gives the answers. Now, what the boy was saying is I moderate my learning behaviour according to the mood my teacher is in. And that's the reality of what happens in class. But we all pretend it doesn't. So we often say to teachers, if you're feeling in a really bad mood, you should go into class and go, I'm in a really bad mood. And teachers go, oh, you can't do that. And I say, why not? And they say, well, you'll scare the pupils. And I go, no, what scares the pupil is they already know you're in a bad mood, but they don't know why. Is it something I've done? Are they going to shout at you? And therefore, making emotion clearly visible, talking about it and dealing with it is really, really important. We were doing an exercise in a classroom in Karachi, actually, just a few weeks ago. And there was an artist and a teacher, and they were doing a very simple warm-up exercise by which they played some music, and each pupil had a big piece of white paper and some ink paint, and said, just draw what you're feeling, abstract, words, anything you like, and so on and so forth. Just to go, how's everybody feeling? So the girls all got busy doing this. And one of the girls looked at a piece of paper for a long time, didn't draw anything, and then wrote in big letters, I'm so sorry. So we finished the music and waited, and then we said to one girl, what did you do? And she showed, I did this, and I'm feeling quite happy. And I came to the girl and I said, what did you do? She held it up and she said, well, my best friend, who was sitting opposite her, has stopped talking to me. And I just wanted to say to her, I'm so sorry. So the artist and the teacher who did that said, no, absolutely fine. That's great. And moved on, talked to another girl. Now you watch that girl, and you could see her whole body relax because she'd said it. It was out there, and she knew it. And then she got on with the lesson. But if she hadn't had the opportunity to do that, it would have been inside of the whole of the lesson, and she wouldn't have done any learning at all. So creating space for emotions to come out. What to me is interesting, because I see it again and again, is a lot of people go, but if I let all that emotion out, it's going to get out of control. The opposite happens. When you let it out, it gets back in control. That's the key part of that process. And then the inclusiveness is designing lessons where everybody can be part of. Not everyone's going to succeed to the same level. We know that, but they can all do that. And then in terms of the role of the learner, you're aiming to end up with self-managed learners. They have to take responsibility for their own learning. You can't learn for them. All you can do is teach. They have to learn, they have to take responsibility, and that's what's going to happen. What we find when we do this is that teachers observe the impact of this way of teaching on pupils. And what you see all the time is more confident pupils, better motivation, better collaboration, greater resilience, which means you deal with failure better, better discipline and improved attainment, better test results and so forth. And teachers go, well, I want that all the time. I don't want that just when I'm doing these special projects with group of 5. And they start to take that practice back into their daily lessons because they see what happened and they go, but we can do that too. Everything in the high-functioning classroom is in my power as a teacher to do, and they begin to do that. And what you get is the teachers start to change, and then from there, what happens is other teachers go, why are you having such a good time with class 6, who are known to be very difficult? And we go, well, this is what I do, and then gradually it spreads out.